Welcome to Grassroots Grind. I'm your host, Rays Ramputh. Get inside the game with the people shaping its future, from players, coaches, referees, parents, and everyone in between. They share their journeys, struggles, and triumphs. Today I'm joined by Dan Seymour, chairman of Shield Academy, as we dive into his journey from a teenage coach to leading a thriving grassroots club. We discuss Shield's philosophy, player development, and what it takes to build a successful football environment focused on enjoyment and growth. Right, hi all, and just want to welcome my first guest to this podcast here. Hi Dan, how are we doing?
Good, very good, thank you.
So Dan, can we start with your story and how did you get into coaching and what keeps you passionate over the years?
Absolutely. Okay, so started coaching at 15, working within my school that I went to. Aim for me was to work with the younger year groups. I was working with our year sevens. Being truthful, part of that was around looking at the future, looking at, especially as I got into sixth form and I continued head boy applications, university, and what, really was going to look good on my CV.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I didn't have a passion for it. Obviously the more I coached, the more I enjoyed. Decided quite early on that I wanted to gain my coaching qualifications. Started my level 1 at 16, not long after my 16th birthday. Level 2, I embarked on 2 months after my 17th birthday. I achieved my level 2 within 6 months. And then just after my 18th birthday, I was recommended and went straight on to the FA level 3, which is now known as the UEFA B. That took about 2 years to achieve, or just under. I was 19 when I finally completed it. Wasn't quite ready at the time, but, spent more time developing my knowledge. So that gave me a really good grounding. I decided when I was 20 to start up a coaching school, which was my own. It filtered into what I've got now, which is a football club called Shield Academy. That wasn't an intention of mine, but it just ended up growing from, 13 boys, a few footballs, a bag of balls, some equipment into, a fully fledged football club. Quite fortunate that I managed to get my first kind of job away from Shield and more towards the academy environment, working alongside Chelsea, especially more in development from the age of 20. I spent 7 years working with Chelsea, mainly on development and scouting, followed by a year at Norwich City and a year at Leyton Orient. Some brilliant experiences in there, but that then led me back into focusing more over the last probably 8 to 10 years on Shield Academy.
So Chelsea, Norwich and Leyton Orient, those are some really big names there. Was there anything that you felt that you've taken on or you learnt from those teams or those clubs, that you brought into Shield itself?
Yeah, there's some real big differences actually. So if you looked at Chelsea, you could see from bottom up and top down that there was a style, and that the kind of you're replicating what we wanted to build, or what the academy wanted to build to potentially replicate, first team priorities in the future. I felt they led in terms of the way they use satellite centres, where you see now a lot of professional clubs having various centres of excellence, or, development sessions, etc., etc. Chelsea were working primarily, 5 to 8, offering satellite centres which were invite only to filter into the academy to try and find the best players around. I felt that was brilliant, because actually it was something which really gave me an indication of how they started to kind of view things from an early age, what they were looking for, how they'd use that as an opportunity to build into the academy system and the academy structure. Norwich was a little bit different in the time I had there, and actually there was more a focus on what type of players did they want to find and produce. So a lot more on, trying to find more multi-directional players in comparison maybe to, at points, what felt like more athletic players at Chelsea. And that doesn't mean that Chelsea got it wrong. There's obviously different ways and different types of players for different needs. Leyton Orient was a very different mix. I purely scouted. And again, I think for me it was difficult to completely ascertain what they were looking for at points. That's not a knock, but I suppose I came from two examples of really high, expectation and structure. Whereas for Leyton Orient, it's very difficult. You're battling against everyone around you.
Yeah.
You're not the biggest fish. So very difficult in there. That, for me, it was more technical players. But, you're always kind of up against it.
Right. And do you, like, with Shield currently, that the Shield Academy that you currently represent, do you have any personal ties to a team, like having a child who plays? And if so, how does that influence your coaching style at all?
No. So obviously starting the club when I started it, 1920, you'd hope I wasn't going to have a kid playing at the club. I didn't have my first kid till I was 31. So I've gone a long time in between coaching to having children. My eldest now comes to mini shields. I don't get involved.
Right.
I purposely don't get involved. I look at it as, if he wants to play, it's his journey. It's, his fun. The coach, I want the coach to be his hero.
Yes.
I don't need it to be me.
Yeah.
I don't think it influences the way I coach, because I think for me, I get the difficulty when you're trying to balance yourself as a parent and as a coach, and that is tough.
Right.
But I look at it as when I coach, I coach.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned mini shields there. So how's the structure set out at Shield Academy? I take it mini shields is like an introductory for young youths.
Yep. So we offer a session. It's historically been free. We charge a very small yearly fee.
Yeah.
And it is a very small yearly fee for our players to come in. They get a weekly session. At the very, very least, we try and target the technical program, or the introductions to the technical program that we have at the club. And the aim of that is to both start building some of the technical elements we want from players at the youngest age, but also filter in to the club long term. We find it generates around 2 to 3 teams a season.
Right. And how many teams have you got at Shield?
Currently, I think we're at 25. We were up to 27. At the moment, I always say you work in cycles. We're at a bit of a cycle now where you're seeing some of the older age groups starting to go, younger age groups coming in. So although you might see the club shrinks a little bit in numbers over time, actually long term it grows again.
It does. 25 teams is quite a fair bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, we started 1 team year 1, 2 teams year 2, 4 teams year 3, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And that's a celebration of where we are.
Yeah. Walk us through a typical training session with your team. Like, what approach would you take, like in terms of warm-ups and drills, and how do you structure them?
I think it depends on the age group.
Yeah.
For me, it depends on the age group. If you're looking at clubs in general, it depends on your priorities, your coach's priorities. So if you're looking at my youngest age group, everything's about getting on the ball.
Right.
The youngest age groups, I believe that if you want to improve them as footballers, at the moment, I'm not worried about positions. I'm not worried about anything other than contact time on the ball. Lots of opportunities to go 1v1, 2v1, 2v2. So actually, that's a structure in itself. What would I do with my youngest age groups? I primarily look at ball work, ball mastery, individual ball mastery. Lots of individual ball mastery. Lots of opportunities for them to express themselves. Opportunities for them to apply that ball mastery into 1v1s. And into very small-sided games, 2v2, 3v3. Nice. If I'm going a little bit older at the moment, I'm working with under 13s. It is a little bit more based on the needs. Yeah. So I'm looking a little bit more now at things such as building a block of learning. So we're building a block on building and retaining possession at the moment. And we're doing that over 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. So my lead-in practices will build into the game that I'm trying to kind of use, and the messages and the pictures that I'm trying to show.
Right. And in terms of how do you handle like giving feedback to your players? Do you focus more on praising what they're doing, or do you also point out areas where they can kind of improve?
Well, coaching is about 2 things. It's about recognising strengths, and it's about improving areas to develop. So I don't think you can't do both. Right. And I think you have to be able to do both and willing to do both. Sometimes it's about how you do both. So for me, there's different ways. I will stop the session. Sometimes stopping it is about showing them something I want to see, a picture. Right. Something I want them to see. Sometimes I'll ask questions to give feedback. Sometimes I'll be quite explicit. This is what I want. Sometimes I'll stop it to praise. Sometimes I won't stop it at all. Sometimes while the game's going on, I'll go in, I'll make comments, I'll ask questions, I'll get feedback, and I'll do it as the game's live.
Right.
So the reason for that is because, obviously sometimes you need to stop it, but sometimes stopping it can also disrupt the flow,
Sure.
especially if you overstop it. So for me, there's nothing wrong with giving feedback, but I think it's about how you do it, how often you do it, and actually how can you maximize feedback whilst maximizing game time.
Sure. And when your kids are playing your matches, like, do you rotate them into different positions, or do you like to play them at their strongest position?
How do you know their strongest position is the question. Again, you go to the youngest age groups, a lot of the time I hear this, my kid's a striker.
Yeah.
How do you know they're a striker?
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
They're
yes.
6, they're 7, they're 8.
Of course.
At the moment, you don't know how their attributes, characteristics are going to manifest and develop. So for me, I rotate them everywhere at the youngest age groups. I want them to be on the ball, and they're going to be on the ball in all different positions. And you also notice quite a lot that they go everywhere.
Yeah.
So, actually for me, if I want to develop their left foot, sometimes they've got to play left side.
Yeah.
As an example. So I believe wholeheartedly in rotation. I also think that rotation's important as they get older, but the older they get, the rotation maybe slows, it reduces. So yeah, as they get into 13, 14, 15, you're starting to get an idea of where they might be more effective. And that's the word, effective, for me. What characteristics they show that enable them to be effective.
Sure.
So that's where I might start to rotate. But at the same time, if I pigeonhole a player into one position,
Sure.
it's going to be very difficult if that player can't play a game.
And I'm sure you might have seen that from some of the academies that you've worked at, right?
I think great example of it, actually, if you look at Chelsea, look at Reece James.
Yeah.
Reece James, up until quite a part of his academy journey, was a striker.
Right.
He was a centre forward.
Right.
So he moved, I think, maybe 13, something like that, into right back.
Mm-hmm.
And that became his predominant position.
I see.
So, absolutely, look on the continent, sometimes some of the best goalkeepers you've seen didn't play in goal until they were older. They didn't specialise. So, absolutely, I think you've got to look realistically at what's the, what characteristics they possess, and that might inform the types of areas of the pitch they might play in later.
Sure. And take us back to training drills and training with your team. Are there resources out there? Because I do believe I've come across one called a coaching manual. Does most of your coaches use that? And do you find resources like that useful for some coaches or for some clubs?
I think for me, a resource is a resource. Anyone can go online, take a session, go and put the session on.
Yeah.
Doesn't it look great? For me, and what I try and do, and it's very, very difficult because I use resources,
right?
And I'll use them as a picture. What is it I'm trying to get? But at the same time, it's about making it my own. So it's, for me, I look at how do I design practices that are going to allow the team to do the things I want them to do, or see the things I want them to see. So you've got that mix. You talk about the coaching manual. They're fantastic. You've got things like Academy Soccer Coach, fantastic. Great resources, great ideas.
Yeah.
But the question's always going to be for your coaches: are they, trying to get the word here, is it the right structure for the group you've got and what they need and the outcomes you want?
Right. I see what you mean. It's like their takeaways from that session, right? In terms of what you want them to take away with. I get that. I see. And in terms of how, when you come across players who are struggling in terms of their development, whether it's their behaviour or a skill development, how do you kind of as a coach, how would you handle those sort of challenges?
Depends on the struggle. Like you said, there can be different reasons. Sometimes what might perceive to be a technical or a tactical struggle could be a psychological struggle.
Right.
And it's very difficult because we're not in an environment where you have endless resources to bring in sports psychologists.
True.
Ultimately. So, I think for me, it's all about understanding your players. It's understanding who they are, what they need. The FA, look at the four corner model, understanding them socially, psychologically, building a profile, technically, tactically, building a profile around your players will help you to have a bit better understanding of what it is that, maybe they're struggling with. Sometimes I might use game analysis because that's going to help me, individual player analysis within a game will help me to understand what is it I'm seeing. Firstly, pinpoint what is it. I might have conversations with a player. But then actually, what do I do next? Is it individual challenges? Is it, target setting, individual learning plans? If I'm using a learning plan and I'm giving the player a plan, say, well, actually, over the next 4 weeks, we're going to develop, your ability to twist and turn because we're finding in 1v1s you struggle when you're, back to goal. That might be, the thing we're focused on. Right. But then it might be within the sessions they do, what challenges am I giving them to allow them to experience success?
Do you reckon the individual learning, because I've heard this phrase before, the individual learning plans, do you feel that there is a way to kind of, they are individual, of course, but how are you kind of making that, do you make that more of a team thing as well? Like, they're all learning individuals. They're all individuals learning certain skills. Where some players might be able to, kick a ball with their left foot, even though they're right-footed, or vice versa, and some won't. And they might be on a journey to work on their individual learning plans. But at what point, as a coach, do you bring that together to have team play?
They go hand in hand, really.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on the age group. If I'm looking at the youngest age groups, I'm primarily concerned with 1v1s. Primarily, I want them on the ball for as long as possible.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they stay on it forever.
Right.
And they have to understand when to go alone, when to lend it.
Right.
Ultimately, as we're getting older, if I look at the 13s I'm working with now, I have to build in individual challenges that are going to affect the way the team play football, ultimately. So we have team challenges, things I want them to achieve.
Yeah.
We've got individual challenges. How do you fit into what we're trying to achieve today?
Yeah.
So if I'm looking today at building and retaining possession, how does my 8 fit in? But I might be working with the 8, but I've also got to affect the 9. I've also got to affect the 2, the 3. So I've still got to affect the surrounding players. So you still look at within that topic for me, whatever it is you're working with, how do other people fit into the way you're trying to encourage football to be played, as well as, what do the challenges you have impact you and others?
Right, I see. And if someone was listening to this and thinking about becoming a grassroots coach, what sort of advice would you give them to get started on their own journey?
First thing is, coaching is about enjoyment. And inspiring others, to the best you can. We don't always get it right, but, it's about the best you can, those two elements. I would say have a quest for knowledge.
Right.
I realised that I didn't feel that I liked the way I coached. And there were things I wasn't happy with.
Was that due to feedback from others, or was that yourself kind of...
Myself.
Right.
And I think for me, and I'm at an interesting stage of my development because I did my FA level 3 or my UEFA B, and I'm doing it again.
Right.
And I'm doing it again because for me, it's all about a quest for knowledge. I found that at a young age, everything was, I want to go here, here, and here. I didn't really appreciate what I needed, the skills I needed.
Yeah.
And actually now I'm completely different because the focus has changed. The quest for knowledge has increased.
I see.
Because I'm not doing things to be coaching at a specific level. I'm doing it to be a better coach because I want to improve. That would be what I would say to coaches. Have that quest for knowledge. Enjoy learning.
Yeah. That's. Do you feel that came with age though, or was that kind of experiences as well, the mixture of the two?
Yeah, my playing opportunities ended very, very early. I got injured very early, had an ACL reconstruction. So by 18, I couldn't play. No matter whether I think I was good enough or not, I don't think I was good enough. And I'm quite honest about that, I always have been. But whether I was or whether I wasn't, I didn't have the opportunity to do that, to allow myself to maybe go where I would like to have gone. Again, whether I was good enough or not, and I will say not. But I think I transferred down to coaching. Well, I'm not going to be this, I'm going to be that.
Right.
And then it was, I'm going to be that by hook or by crook. Not, I'm going to be that, but this is the stages I need to get to.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to immerse myself in it. So, you know, it kind of comes round in circles. And now I'm at the point of that full circle where I'm saying, well, actually, I want to do it again. I'm not worried about the award. I'm worried about the learning, the knowledge, the development.
Right, I see. And thank you for that, Dan. And just to kind of wrap up, where does Shield Academy get their kits from?
Where do we get the kits from?
Yeah. What shops do you tend to buy from your kits? Sorry.
So teams can use whoever they like, really. You know, as long as it fits within our kit expectations. So we do have a kit. If it fits into that, we don't have a major issue. Some will use an online company, Sport in Touch, who are in the Midlands. Many will use Football and Cricket in Woodford, who has been a brilliant friend of the club for many, many years. Some will go to, you know, other online opportunities or shops. It really does depend on the individual.
Right, okay. And the club itself, right?
Yeah.
And how do clubs actually determine the sort of brands of tops that they get? Because right now I see most of our, or all of our Shield Academy coaches all Stano. Is that correct? Yeah.
It's always difficult because you're looking at a few things, really: affordability, quality, and duration, reliability. Say duration in a few ways, you know, because that could lead to, you know, the quality. How long does it actually last? But also, I'm looking more at, well, actually, lead time.
Yeah.
We want kits that are going to allow our teams to have an identity, allow us to be slightly individual, allow us to, you know, to work quickly, to get them in quickly, and allow them to be affordable. Doesn't mean they need to be cheap. They need to be affordable. They need to be, you know, those things for us. So we felt Stano was the right move for us at the time,
right,
for various reasons. You know, are we loyal? We're loyal if we need to be loyal. We're not if we don't need to be loyal. You know, if we feel that a better opportunity came up for the club, we'll take that opportunity. At the moment, I feel it's the right opportunity for the club.
Great. Thank you. And just to wrap up, Shield Academy is based in? Barkingside, right. Okay, is there anything at all that you want listeners to take away from today's chat in regards to grassroots football?
I think grassroots is exactly what you just said it is. It's grassroots. I think sometimes we've got a real emphasis on, you know, result. We've got a real emphasis on, you know, things that maybe are about us and not about them. And ultimately, what's our aim? Why are we here? We're here because we've got young people playing football. We've got young people off the streets. We've got young people off their PlayStations or Xboxes. You've got young people playing football. Yeah. We need to remember that. That's what it's about. Kids playing football, kids being kids, kids enjoying, kids making memories that maybe, you know, we facilitate those memories. And we have to remember our job is to facilitate them, not always to take it away, to make it something about us.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Cheers.